Hey, coaches, welcome to another season of wrestling and another opportunity to learn about our rules updates and the different things that are going on that we'll be having conversations with our officials throughout the year. And so as we have for the last several years, welcome back Rick Rude, one of our state heads of officials that helps us become aware of all the new rules, updates, and changes and points of emphasis. So welcome, Rick.
Yep, thank you. It's great to be back. And I think it's what year 5 for me as the state rules coordinator. And certainly excited about wrestling again in Minnesota. We've got a great bunch of new rules coming and a great program and going to keep Minnesota wrestling as strong as it has been and even better.
All right. Well, I know we're going to be starting off with a couple of, they are easy changes to understand, but they are big and impactful of how a match will be scored and officiated.
Yeah, I think the high school league accepted all of the National Federation's changes. There was a lot of active conversation at the National Federation level, but they believed all of these changes were going to be better for wrestling and liked the idea of opening up the mat and making it more of an offensive base, scoring early, scoring a lot, maybe pressing for more tech falls. And with that, with a larger mat, there's going to be an emphasis on calling stalling where it exists on the side of the mat situation. So this is all good stuff, and I'm really looking forward to taking all the coaches through this. This will be a lot of fun.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's take a look.
All right, so we are going to have about 5 major changes in here. Starting out, the very first change is the center circle. The 10-foot circle is optional. We no longer have to have that. The starting lines indicate the center of the mat, and that's all we really need to know. The mats
And
that
on
exist.
some people's pretty extravagant mats and some of the designs they have on them, that center line or that center circle sometimes is pretty blurred anyway.
Yeah, it's really hard to see. And again, it's not necessary to have it there. When the official directs the wrestlers to the center of the mat, they'll go to the starting lines, and that's all we really need. Now, for those of you schools that have a center circle on your mat, you don't have to do anything. It's optional, but you don't have to worry about trying to get rid of it. So the center circle on the mat is optional. We made a change in the point of contact. This is a very good change, pressed very hard from all of our coaches and associations around the nation. They love this single point of contact, as you can see in the top of the slide. All of the rules that are affected by this. So shoulder, head, elbow, hand, hip, knee, foot, one point of contact, and wrestling will continue. So this is going to be a nice change, a nice offensive change to wrestling, but it also requires that facilities have that 5-foot safety mat in place because more wrestlers are going to be wrestling with that single point of contact on the mat and everything else off the mat.
And you
In
just
many
alluded
situations,
to one of the points I wanted to say. It's the cylinder is not in effect anymore. It used to be in Minnesota, as long as if you were elevated, but it was inside the cylinder of the circle, it's good. Now you actually have to have one point physically touching the mat, correct?
that is correct, Gip. One point must be in contact with the mat. We never had a cylinder rule. However, we did allow that point of contact to hover above and touch the mat. No longer. It must be in contact. And when it comes out of contact and off the mat, if that's the only point in, it'll be out of bounds.
And out of bounds is completely outside the outer circle.
Correct. Wrestling is the only sport where the circle is in bounds, so it has to be completely outside that circle.
Unless
So
safety
this will be a
plays a
good
factor.
change. Yeah, this will be a good change, and I know it. A lot of the large associations, state associations that pressed for this were very pleased with this move. I think it's going to be nice. It's going to be easy for officials to see this. It's going to be easy for coaches, wrestlers, and fans to understand it. It's a good move for wrestling. So again, one point of contact must be in the mat in order for wrestling to continue. Secondly, near falls have changed. We now have a 2-point near fall for 2 seconds, 3 points for 3 seconds, 4 points for 4 seconds. If a wrestler is injured, bleeding, or indicates they're injured, and we must stop it for the defensive wrestler, then it would be the near fall, either imminent or earned, +1 for match stoppage. So we could have near fall 2, 3, 4, and 5, Kip. This is
Now,
a change.
and maybe I'm interpreting wrong, but is there a possibility of near fall? Well, it's not nearly necessarily near fall 6, but if I'm the bottom wrestler and I do something illegal that stops the match, and we were already in the 4-point near fall, it's the 4-point near fall plus the 1 stoppage of the mat for 5 near fall, and then the penalty point coming on top of it, 6. Am I interpreting that correctly?
You are interpreting that almost perfect. It will not be a near fall 6. It's a near fall 5 plus
With a
1
penalty
point,
point.
1 point for penalty. So we have track wrestling all updated with these signals, NF2, NF3, NF4, and NF5. So in that scenario, and that is a good example to bring up, defensive wrestler has caused an illegal hold, must stop the match. We would stop it. We'd give the near fall plus the match stoppage and then the penalty point. So yeah, so it'd be near fall 5 is the most you would get, and then the penalty point would come after that. Another change is to the tech fall. In this situation now, when a tech fall occurs from the takedown directly to the back. Now remember, we're on our back, but the takedown created the tech fall. We will continue wrestling as long as near fall criteria is met. Period. Second scenario, takedown to the back, but the near fall is what creates the tech fall. Now we will continue until the pinning situation has ended. So as long as that wrestler is defending himself off his back or her back, we will continue to wrestle until they come out of that situation and can completely defend themselves or the period is ended. So
So
a
if
headlock.
I'm just like, so, in the example, the takedown is what put me in. We went to our back. The kid hits a high bridge, gets off his back momentarily, even though maybe I didn't let go of my half, but he comes off his back. Match is now stopped. But if it is
Very
the
good
near fall that puts
example.
him into the criteria for the tech fall, and I've got that same high half and I haven't released it, even if he comes off his back, it's still considered a pinning situation because I haven't released my half. And maybe a better example there would be a cradle. My cradle's still locked. He's not in near fall danger, but the same hold is still in play. So I have the opportunity to put him back to his back because the near fall hasn't been awarded yet because I haven't broke my move.
And Kip, the final statement is what's important. The tech fall has not been awarded yet because we're still in a pinning situation. So we may have a 14-0 match. Takedown made it 14-0. On the back, we're holding a 4-point near fall, but it has not been awarded. So we will continue until we come out of the pinning situation and award those points, then we're over. The other situation, the takedown created the tech fall, but we went directly to the back. We're going to allow them to get the pin as long as they don't leave near fall criteria.
Which
Okay.
is one shoulder down with a 45-degree angle to the other, a high
Correct.
bridge, or double elbows.
Correct. Correct. And again, I think this is going to be another good addition to wrestling. We need to understand it. We need to read it a couple times, but it's going to be a good addition because the match is over. Takedown created the tech fall. We're going to allow them to get the pin, but when they come out of criteria, that situation's ended. The match is over.
You know, and this slide is a good reminder of, we hear it all the time, people yelling back points, back points. There is no such thing as back points. There's near fall points, and there is a certain set of criteria that has to occur for near fall to be in criteria.
That's correct. And we can get back into really old wrestling uh, discussions here and back when the day when it was a predicament. You are in a predicament. And there was a 2-point predicament and a 3-point predicament. But no, Kip, you're right. Once the situation has ended, the near fall criteria has ended, then it would be the end of the match. So again, just a further explanation of this. Know when that match is concluded. A new signal has been added at the National Federation when the referee is causing a timeout or needs to cause a timeout or a conference. Anything that is required by the referee for a timeout, the new signal is both hands pressing the chest, fingers pointing in, and that will be the new signal that's been added. Also in Minnesota, we use the continuous action signal. We asked the National Federation to make that a national signal. They declined and said states can use pretty much any signals that they deem necessary. We think the continuous action is perfect. We've got a stall that could occur when you go out of bounds. We've got a flee, technical violation that could occur when you go out of bounds, but we don't have a signal that shows that it was continuous action that took them out. So continuous action is the hand moving straight forward in a circle motion as they do in college. So we've got the officials timeout and the continuous action timeout that we use in Minnesota.
Yeah, and then in this particular case, I would say probably better than 80 or 90% of our officials have been using this anyway. Kids' headgear comes off, my time, get that back on, but.
That's correct. That's correct. You know, the fun thing about this is every sport at the National Federation level, every sport has that signal as an official's timeout, with the exception of wrestling. So now we are catching up. So new signal, pretty straightforward. Takedowns are now 3 points. National Federation is asking us to use 3 with the pinky tucked under. Most of us that have been doing this for a while cannot do that. So 3-point takedown, that's just the way it's going to be. You will now be hollered at for 3 instead of hollered at for 2. But a good move. Takedowns are important. Scoring early is important. I think this is a really nice move by the National Federation. And it was unanimous voting by all member states. Some points of emphasis that I want to make, and it's unfortunate we always have different points of emphasis that we have to have. Last year we had a tough situation. We had 1,500 kids wrestling in the state tournament. One kid came in and decided he was going to pull a little MMA choke move, and it got away. He got away with it, and it was unfortunate. We are pressing this in training to all officials. So any hold or maneuver with pressure over an opponent's nose, mouth, throat, neck is illegal. And Rule 7.5G states the same thing. Rule 8.2 states the exact same thing. We're going to be looking for this. We're going to try to get you out of it with a potentially dangerous. There'll be some verbal chatting from the referee to the wrestler to stay off the neck. If you go to it again, it's illegal. If you go to it with an intent, the referee's judgment, there was an intent to injure, it's going to be flagrant misconduct. But we will eradicate these moves from high school wrestling. So wrestlers that might be listening to this, eliminate these moves from your toolbox. We don't want them. We don't need them. You're not going to be able to use them. Coaches, if it comes in, and these things do come in from different camps and training outside of your control, let's eradicate them. Get them out of there. Officials, get into position, watch, learn, stop this before kids get hurt. I'm going to take you through a difficult situation, but this is a match at the state tournament, and as you can see, can you see? Yeah, you can see this. The wrestlers are going at it, and not a lot of defense. Gives up the legs, but then instead of bellying out or going to the trunk of the body, went right straight to the neck. The head referee should have seen that. The assistant referee definitely should have seen that. This was ultimately called potentially dangerous, and the medical department cleared him, and they came back in and they restarted. The only reason they restarted is that both referees did not have any indication that the defensive wrestler was unconscious. If the defensive wrestler was unconscious, that match is over. It is no longer a potentially dangerous. It's actually dangerous. It's illegal, and we would penalize them, and we would eject that. This match continued, and he went back into the exact same move, exact same situation. And in this case, neither one of the referees caught it. Our guys are going through some very detailed training on this. We're watching for this. These holds are just not going to exist in wrestling any longer. So please work with us. Please work with your officials. Please work with your wrestlers, your parents, if that's the situation, and let's get this stuff out of wrestling and move on. This came from a national federation, so it was not just in Minnesota, but we're hitting it quite hard here. Yep, that's what I have for the new rules and the changes this year and our points of emphasis. We're looking forward to a great year and working with all of you.
We thank you again, Rick, for doing this for our coaches, and we appreciate the opportunity to get those updates before the season starts. And here we're recording late October, and we're hoping to have this out to our coaches here in the first week in November. So definitely appreciate the time, and it gives them a couple weeks to soak it all in before the kids hit the mat on November 18th.
Super. One other point, Kip, and I want to make this to all of the coaches. And if you see a situation that you think should have been called, a situation like this choke that we just discussed, someone had mentioned to the league that this kid had done this in a couple different places. We had no knowledge of that. Nobody called the league. Nobody told Charlie Campbell or Jason Nickleby, and nobody came to me. If that does exist, get that word out. Coaches, get to your ADs get to the league, run through the channels that exist that we put in place for you, get that communication out. We'll fix it. We will definitely fix it.
And like you're talking about something here that is illegal or dangerous or different things like that, but I've had some great exchanges with coaches as an official as well. I mean, I double here as both for the Coaches Association and as official, but I've had some great exchanges with coaches where they had questions about why I called something after the fact, right? Like they didn't make a scene at the mat, but they had a recording of it on their Matt Boss video or whatever they were using to record, and just kind of emailed later in the week and said, in the moment, I get it all, but can you help me step through some of those things? And it was obviously a coach that I had a great relationship with and wasn't in a spot where I was feeling attacked or whatever. But those exchanges become really powerful. It helps officials learn, it helps coaches learn. And ultimately in that particular case, it was a little bit of a judgment call. And it was at the end of a period, and had there been another 2 seconds and would have been able to hold them in that same spot for that next 2 seconds, and I would have said, yep, there was control there. But because it was bam, bam at the whistle, it wasn't clear control to me. Others might have had an argument that it was, but it just made for a great conversation. And I just was impressed with the professionalism of the coach and how it was handled in the moment of the tournament, but then with heavy reflection later on.
Kip, that's such a great point. And I think that's something we have here in Minnesota that I am so proud of. I've been officiating. This will be my 45th year. And I have to say, I would put the Minnesota wrestling coaches up against anybody in this nation. We have a fantastic group. And wrestling is a three-headed monster. Number one and most important is that wrestler. Number 2 is the coach, and number 3 is the official. We all have different things to do, but the better the wrestling, the better the coaching, the better the coaching, the better the officiating, the better the officiating, the better the wrestling. And all of that comes through setting expectations, through communication. And, you know, as state wrestling coordinator for Minnesota, my phone is available to every one of you. Something you want to chat about, something you want to go over, a point of emphasis you want to make to me, or if you just want to chat about where the walleye are biting, I'm here. I'm available for you. But I love what you guys do. I love Minnesota wrestling, and I think the camaraderie between coaches and officials is incredibly, incredibly important. And that's what makes Minnesota wrestling as great as it is.
And it takes a lot of good officials to make it happen too. And
Yes.
we've got a lot of good ones. So thanks again, Rick. We appreciate it. And we'll see you on the mats.
Yep, you're welcome, and best to all of you.